They say marriage is built on trust. But in my case, it was more like IKEA furniture, held together with too many screws, bad instructions, and a blind hope that it wouldn't collapse when someone leaned too hard on it. It was a Tuesday, because of course it was. Nothing world-shattering ever happens on a Saturday when you're braced for drama. Nope, betrayal prefers a weeknight, when your guard's down and your mouth's still tasting toothpaste and leftover lasagna. Monica was in the kitchen, chopping bell peppers like they owed her money. I had just finished grading a stack of sophomore essays. Still had red pin on my fingertips when the doorbell rang. Ding dong. Now, in most homes, that sound means Amazon or Jehovah's Witnesses. But in mine, it marked the beginning of the unraveling. The kind of unraveling you don't notice at first because it doesn't come with sirens. Just a young man. Nervous. Slim. Same shade of dark hair as me. Eyes that looked like I'd seen them before but couldn't place. "Can I help you?" I asked. The kid blinked. "Are you Adam Keller?" "That's me." He extended a hand. "I'm Eli Brenner." "I'm your son." It took everything in me not to blink twice, maybe 3 times, and ask him if he had the wrong driveway or was selling a new form of scam. But even as I opened my mouth, my brain was already playing the highlight reel. College. Jessica Brenner. Summer romance. One that burned out faster than my patience at faculty meetings. I glanced back into the house. Monica was still within earshot. "Come again," I said, keeping my voice steady. Teaching physics for 20 years had trained me to maintain calm while kids claimed aliens stole their homework. My mom was Jessica Brenner. I was born in 2008. She said you didn't know. He pulled out a piece of paper and a photograph. Me, 20 years younger, arm around Jessica, smiling like someone who still believed in permanence. The math added up. The face matched. The pit in my stomach nodded in grim agreement. Before I could digest it, Monica entered stage left, dish towel in hand, suspicion already rising like steam off her forehead. "Who's this?" "This is Eli. He says he's my son." Let's just say the towel didn't make it back to the rack. What followed could only be described as a cold front moving through the living room. Monica's voice never cracked, but it did cut. "A son? A son you never told me about." "I didn't know," I said. It was the truth. The truth just didn't matter anymore. Not when it felt like I'd brought a ghost into our house wearing my DNA. She told me to pack a bag. I didn't argue, because some silences speak louder than screaming. And Monica wasn't crying. She was calculating. Ice doesn't weep, it breaks. By 9:28 p.m., I was staring at the dashboard in the parking lot of the Holiday Inn Express, trying to remember how many kinds of broken a man could feel before he stopped counting. The motel receptionist handed me a key card and a coupon for the breakfast bar. I didn't want eggs. I wanted clarity. Maybe a rewind button. Or a second chance. But all I had was room 214 and a buzzing phone. A text from Monica, "Please don't come back." I read it 3 times, each one louder than the last. And just like that, my life, the one I thought was made of stone, began to feel suspiciously like sand. There's something uniquely humbling about eating powdered eggs in a motel breakfast room next to a man in pajama pants and cowboy boots. Especially when you're realizing your whole marriage might have been built on hope, denial, and a really good Costco wedding deal. I was staring at the waffle maker like it held answers when Eli slid into the chair across from me. No warning. Just an 18-year-old with my eyes and none of my awkwardness. "Did she kick you out?" he asked, like we were discussing the weather. "She asked me to leave," I said. He nodded slowly, as if he'd already guessed that much. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Yeah," I said, "but you sure succeeded anyway." To his credit, he didn't get defensive. Just looked down at his plate and poked at the hotel sausage links like they offended him. "I get it," he said. "It's weird. All of it. But I didn't come to blow up your life. I came because my mom, Jessica, she wanted me to find you." I believed him. I didn't know what else to do with that belief, but it settled in like a stone at the bottom of a lake. Heavy. Still. Unignorable. We agreed on a DNA test. Because even betrayal deserves a lab result before you rearrange your life around it. That afternoon, I texted Monica. "Me, can we talk?" No reply. "Me, not about us. About the kid. DNA test. I'll pay for it." Still silence. But silence, I was learning, was her new favorite weapon. 3 days later, the results came in. 99.9987% probability. Eli was mine. I looked at the paper for a long time. Funny how a few decimal points can change the trajectory of your entire existence. One moment, I was grading high schoolers' symbolism essays, The next I was learning I had a walking, talking, legally adult symbol of my past standing in front of me. I called Monica. She answered. Miracle of miracles. Well, she said. No hello. No softness. It's true, I said. A pause. Then, I figured. I waited for more. A sigh, a curse, something. But she was too composed. Too still. Where do we go from here? I asked. You go wherever you want, she said. I'll be consulting my lawyer. That one stung. Not because I didn't deserve the punishment. I probably did in some poetic, cosmic sense, but because she didn't want to understand. Didn't want to see that this wasn't betrayal. Not really. It was a ghost returning to haunt a house that had already started falling apart before the knock on the door. That was the first crack in her halo. Monica, the untouchable, the morally unshakable, wasn't curious. She was cold. She wanted to be gone. Not because I lied, but because I interrupted the life she curated so carefully. I went back to the motel. Eli and I shared a cheap pizza and watched some reality show in silence. Father and son. At least on paper. He said, so, what now? I stared at the screen. A woman was crying over a broken engagement and a man was blaming it on Mercury retrograde. I said, no? I guess we just wait and see which bridge burns first. He laughed, a short, unexpected burst. You always this optimistic? No, I said. Usually I'm worse. If you've never dug through your spouse's inbox looking for closure, let me save you the trouble. It's not closure you find. It's confirmation. The kind that grabs you by the collar and says, see? You weren't paranoid. You were paying attention. It started with a phone call from my lawyer buddy, Graham. He'd gone through a brutal divorce 2 years ago and now treated every suspicious marriage like a crime scene. Still got joint phone plans, he asked. Yeah, I said. Why? Because if she's hiding something, it's not in her texts. It's in the emails. Check the junk folder. That's where guilt hangs out. Now, look, I never wanted to be that guy, the digital detective sleuthing through my wife's online life. But Monica had cut me off like a utilities company after 3 missed payments. No texts, no calls, no updates. Just ice. So I logged into our old shared iCloud account, when she forgot she'd linked a few years back when her phone got stolen, and I did the tech stuff she found annoying. Still active. Still synced. And buddy, what I found. Let's just say, my hands stopped shaking. They started typing. There were messages from a man named Gray. At first, I thought it was a spam name. You know, like, congratulations. You've won a blender. But no, this wasn't spam. This was emotionally curated infidelity. Intimate paragraphs. Inside jokes. Book references. In one email, she wrote, when I talk to you, I feel like I can breathe again. Adam is predictable. He's all logic and no magic. I need fire. Fire. That word singed the inside of my ribs. Gray, of course, responded with poetry. Literal poetry. Quoting Neruda like a guy who's never had to unclog a kitchen sink. I didn't yell. I didn't confront. I didn't even cry. I just read everything. Twice. Because I needed to understand what story she'd been telling him about me. Apparently, I was boring. Routine. Safe. A man who followed recipes and forgot anniversaries, which, for the record, I never did. I just stopped getting points for remembering. Monica told him she wanted a wild chapter. That she'd sacrificed her soul for stability. That she owed herself one last great love. You ever read a sentence that makes your stomach fold in half? That last one did it. The next morning, I called Eli. I need a favor, I said. Am I going to regret this? He asked. Probably. But hey, you're my kid. Might as well start building memories. He met me at the FedEx store. We printed everything. Every email. Every quote. Every digital love letter that spelled out the fact that I wasn't the only one in our marriage who had a surprise. Then we packed it all into a plain manila envelope. No note. No explanation. Just the raw data of betrayal. And we dropped it off. To Gray's workplace. Because if Monica wanted a wild chapter, I figured it was only fair her co-star knew the full plotline. Including the part where she forgot to finalize her divorce before telling someone else she loved them. That night, I didn't sleep. Not out of grief. Not out of anger. Out of strategy. Because if Monica wanted a story with fire, she just lit the first match. You don't realize how much of your identity is tied to being the good one until someone sets it on fire and calls it self-care. For 20 years, I was predictable. That's the word Monica used in those emails. Not safe, not reliable, predictable. like I was a thermostat or a traffic light. Always there, always functioning, and always taken for granted. I paid bills on time. I remembered to put the trash bins out even when it rained. I was the guy who left you the last slice of pizza and never forgot where you parked your car. Apparently, I was also the guy you slowly erased from your life in a sequence of well-lit photos and flowery emails to a man who uses cologne with French words in it. But that version of me? Mr. Predictable? He's gone. And the man replacing him? Well, he folds his socks a little slower now, just to savor the silence he no longer has to share. The fallout didn't hit immediately. For 2 days after we sent the dossier to Gray's office, Monica was silent. No calls. No texts. Not even a passive-aggressive email about the Netflix password. It was eerie, like the calm before a legal storm. But I was calm too. Unreasonably calm. The kind of calm you get after you accept that everything you thought was permanent was actually rented. Then she called. It was 8:17 p.m. I was sitting on the motel bed, eating takeout lo mein with a plastic fork, watching a documentary about serial killers who lived double lives. Very on theme. Phone buzzed. Monica mobile. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Her voice was brittle, like someone had vacuum-sealed her composure and left her with just enough oxygen to perform. Adam. Monica. A beat of silence. Did you send something to Gray? I took a sip of my Diet Coke. Did you read it? You're unbelievable, she said, and her voice finally cracked, just a little. There it was. The first tremor. No. I replied evenly, what's unbelievable is emailing love poems to a man named after a Crayola color while you're still legally married. It was emotional. It wasn't. Don't reduce it now. You had a folder titled Our Escape Plan and an itinerary for Tuscany. You don't get to call that emotional. That's logistics. She went quiet. Then she shifted gears. You sent that stuff to his work? Do you realize how much damage you've done? I do, I said. And I'm just getting started. Now, let me be clear. I wasn't out for blood. I was out for perspective. I wanted Monica to see, for once, how it felt to be the one caught off guard. To have your story rewritten without your consent. To be the side character in a narrative you didn't audition for. So I started making changes. Little ones. First, I called our bank and froze the joint account. She called the next day, fuming. You froze everything. No, I corrected her. I froze our things. Yours are still free to move, just like you. Then I emailed the school board. As a teacher, I knew how rumors traveled. I didn't expose Monica to her job. No, I'm not cruel. But I made sure the family newsletter didn't feature us on the annual staff couples Valentine's page. Please replace Adam and Monica Keller with just Adam Keller. She's pursuing a solo project in Tuscany. Petty? A little. But precision? Oh, absolutely. By the end of the week, I'd contacted a realtor. Monica didn't know yet. But the house? It wasn't hers. Technically, it wasn't fully mine either. But the mortgage was. And she'd never paid a dime of it. My name was on every document, every tax return, every repair invoice, every emergency water heater replacement. So I filed the motion. To sell. To dissolve. To let go. And I moved into a short-term rental across town. A little place above a bookstore, with creaky floors and a landlady named Barb who made banana bread on Thursdays. It didn't have a master suite or a smart fridge, but it had peace. And for the first time in 2 decades, I could hear myself think. The funny thing about losing everything is that you start noticing what you actually had. And what I had. A version of myself I hadn't seen in years. I'd forgotten that I used to play the guitar. That I liked long walks without directions. That I could cook a decent chili from scratch if I wasn't racing against a dinner schedule someone else dictated. I even remembered how to laugh without checking for Monica's reaction. The motel lo mein had become stir-fry and cast iron. The nights of tossing and turning turned into deep sleep under a second-hand quilt I bought at a flea market for $10. And every night before bed, I wrote. Not emails. Not legal notes. Just thoughts. Things I'd forgotten. Things I wanted back. Monica once told me I was safe but not passionate. Now, I was building bonfires out of her blueprints. The next week, Monica sent one final text. You've made your point. I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because she was still trying to write the last line of a story that I had already closed. She thought revenge was a loud, messy thing shouting matches, slammed doors, broken glasses. But my revenge? It was clean, surgical, elegant. I gave her nothing to twist. No last scene. No punchline. just an echo. The kind that stays long after the character leaves the stage. It was a Tuesday again. Because apparently, the universe has a real soft spot for symmetrical suffering. I had just come back from the bookstore downstairs. Barb insisted I take a copy of The Art of War, said it felt topical, when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I answered out of curiosity more than anything. Curiosity and the faint, unkillable hope that maybe this time the universe was calling with good news. "Mr. Keller?" the voice said. "Speaking. This is Gray. Gray Lawrence." Ah, and there it was. The soft whoosh of the universe exhaling with laughter. I let the silence sit long enough for him to fill it. "I got your delivery," he said. "The documents." "Ah," I said, flat. "So it arrived safely. Good. FedEx always does solid work." He cleared his throat. "Look, I just wanted you to know that I had no idea about the marriage. I thought you two were separated." She said it was technical. "Right?" I said, deadpan. Like a halftime break, only with wine tastings and handwritten poetry. He sighed. "Look, I don't want trouble." "No one ever does," I said, setting the book down. "But we all managed to find it. Funny how that works." Another pause. Then, with an edge of discomfort, he added, "We're done. In case you were wondering." I wasn't, but I let him think I was. He hung up after a mumbled apology, and that was that. Gray, the human sparkler, fizzled out before the real heat ever started. Part of me wished he'd stuck around just long enough for Monica to ruin him too. Part of me realized that was exactly the kind of thought she would have had about me. But here's the thing. I wasn't bitter. Not anymore. I was efficient. That afternoon, I updated my will. Now before you get any dramatic ideas, no, I wasn't planning on dying. But I was planning on living a little differently. And that starts with who gets what when the lights go out. Once upon a time, Monica was listed as the sole beneficiary of everything: retirement account, savings, the rights to my terribly disorganized collection of jazz vinyls. But sitting across from my lawyer, pen in hand, I made a few choice edits. "Let's give the Roth IRA to Eli," I said. Graham raised an eyebrow. "The surprise son? He's the only person who's been honest with me in the last 6 months," I replied. "Fair," he nodded. "And the house sale proceeds?" he asked. "I'll set some aside for Monica. Nothing cruel. Just, what's fair." "You sure?" "Yeah. I'm not here to ruin her. Just to remind her I was never as disposable as she pretended." He smiled faintly. "You've got style, man." I nodded. No one suspects the guy with the sweater vest. The next morning, I sent Monica an invitation. No, not a threat. Not a nasty letter. Just a dinner. Printed on thick cream cardstock with elegant black lettering. Minimalist. Classic. "Monica, please join me for dinner. No lawyers. No arguments. Just closure. Friday, 7 p.m. Le Perigord." I picked the restaurant carefully. White tablecloths, soft jazz, a menu that spelled duck confit correctly. It was the kind of place where silence sounded expensive and emotional breakdowns felt discouraged by the ambient lighting. She didn't reply, but she showed up. She arrived 6 minutes late, wearing the green dress she used to save for our anniversaries. Ironic, since the last one ended with me sleeping in the guest room after she said I lacked depth. She sat down without a word, straightened her napkin, and took a sip of water like she hadn't spent the last month pretending I didn't exist. "Adam," she said, carefully. "Monica." We ordered. Filet mignon for her, grilled sea bass for me. The waiter nodded like he could smell the tension and was already updating his resume. She looked me over. "You look different." "I sleep now," I said. "It does wonders for the complexion." The corner of her mouth twitched, but she said nothing. "I wanted to do this in person," I continued, "because we didn't get an ending. Just damage. And I think we both deserve better than that." She blinked. "You think this is about closure?" "No," I said. "It's about context." I reached into my coat pocket and slid a second envelope across the table. Thicker than the last. She didn't touch it. "What is that?" "Everything," I said. "Every tax return, every utility bill, every receipt from 20 years of a life I thought we were building together." Her jaw tightened. "Is this supposed to make me feel guilty?" "No," I said gently. "This is supposed to make you feel seen." She stared at it like it might explode. Finally, she whispered, "I never planned for it to end like this." "People rarely do," I said. "But then again, you did schedule Tuscany. So I'd argue there was at least some planning involved." She didn't smile. She didn't deny it. "Instead," she said, "Gray ended things." I nodded. "He called me." Wanted to clear his conscience before it caught fire. I didn't think you had this in you, she said. That, I said, leaning back, was always the problem. You mistook restraint for weakness, predictability for passivity. But here we are, having dinner, like adults. She opened the envelope, skimmed the papers. Quiet, calculating. Are you going to make this ugly? She asked finally. No, I said, but I am going to make it memorable. She stared at me for a long time. Then she folded the envelope shut, stood up, and said the one thing I never expected. Thank you. And then she walked out. No slap, no tears, just the click of heels and the weight of a story ending with a period instead of a question mark. There's a strange kind of peace that comes after the wreckage. Not joy, not triumph, just quiet. Like your soul finally exhaled after holding its breath for years. That's where I was. Somewhere between the dust settling and the foundation rebuilding. And then Eli moved in. It wasn't planned. At least, not by me. He showed up one Saturday morning with 2 duffel bags, a worn-out hoodie, and the expression of a kid who's used to people saying, "You can stay a few nights," when what he really needed was someone to say, "You're home." He stood awkwardly at the door of the apartment over the bookstore, the duffels sagging like they'd given up too. Hey, he said. Got kicked out of the Holiday Inn. Didn't even offer a mint on the way out? I asked. He grinned, just a flicker. They said something about long-term guests needing a real address. I guess 18 days of continental breakfast breaks the charm. I stepped aside and waved him in. Well, welcome to the Chateau de Second Chances. We made it work. The space was small, technically a studio with an ego, but I gave Eli the bed and took the couch. Not out of martyrdom. Honestly, I preferred the couch. There's something reassuring about falling asleep where the bookshelves can see you. He settled in fast, like someone who didn't want to risk being told to pack again. Within a week, his socks had started invading my drawer space, and his weird protein powder lived on the kitchen counter like it paid rent. We developed a rhythm. I'd make breakfast. He'd do the dishes. I'd start my lesson plans. He'd apply for community college. On Thursday nights, we'd go to trivia at O'Hara's pub down the street. Turns out, Eli is a genius at geography and 2000s pop culture. I'm good at history, classic literature, and pretending I don't know he's texting a girl named Mariah under the table between rounds. We didn't talk much about Monica. He didn't ask what she said after that dinner, and I didn't volunteer. But one night, while we were eating frozen pizza on the couch, he said, "I don't think I was ever supposed to know you." I looked at him. What do you mean? He shrugged. I think my mom wanted to protect me from disappointment. But after meeting you, I think maybe she was protecting you from me too. From the complications. I leaned back, chewing slowly. You're not a complication. You're just a chapter one didn't realize I'd written. He smiled, small and real. You think Monica would have stayed if he hadn't bailed? He asked. I answered honestly. She didn't leave because of him. She left because she already had one foot out the door. He was just the excuse that finally looked like a reason. He nodded, then went quiet. After that, we talked less about the past. Started building something else instead. 3 weeks later, I bought a house. Not the one Monica and I had shared. That went on the market fast, and the buyers were thrilled to get a home with a newly installed HVAC and a freshly sanitized history. I didn't want it. It was too clean now. Too haunted. The new place was a small ranch with a crooked mailbox and a garage that hadn't seen a car in years. And that garage, that became the project. I stood in it one Saturday with Eli, both of us staring at the cobwebs like they insulted us personally. What are we thinking? He asked. Workshop? Gym? Giant walk-in closet for your protein powder? He smirked. Recording studio? Recording what? I play guitar, he said casually. And piano. And drums. I kind of do all the music things. I blinked. You inherited none of that from me. I sing like a dying microwave. Well, he shrugged. We all bring something to the table. So we turned the garage into a studio. It took time. Insulation, soundproofing, secondhand furniture from Craigslist, and more arguing about paint colors than I care to admit. But it became ours. And somewhere in that project, I started laughing again. Not polite, obligated laughter. I mean real, stupid, full-bellied chuckles that made me sound 5 drinks deep and a decade lighter. There was one afternoon. We were covered in sawdust, arguing over whether navy blue was too moody, when Eli said something about sound waves bouncing off the walls like Monica's compliments. I dropped the paintbrush and laughed so hard I had to sit down. He laughed too, like he couldn't believe he'd said it. We were ridiculous. And for once, that didn't feel like a flaw. One night, I went out on the back porch and just sat. Stars above, crickets somewhere off in the distance. My phone buzzed. Monica, I heard you bought a house. Good for you. I stared at the message. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. I typed back. Me. I heard you didn't go to Tuscany. Yes, he didn't like the itinerary. No reply. I turned the phone off and sat with the silence. Not the kind that used to hang between us in the kitchen, sharp and resentful. No, this was different. This was earned silence. The kind that comes after you finally stop explaining yourself to someone who never intended to understand. Eli came outside a few minutes later. He had his guitar, strummed something soft, something unspoken. I didn't ask what it was. Didn't need to. We sat like that for a while, him playing, me listening, the porch light buzzing overhead like it approved of the moment. Eventually, he asked, "You ever think you'll date again?" I chuckled. I've still got pain in my hair and emotional whiplash. Probably not prime dating material. He grinned. "You'll figure it out." And I believed him, because I wasn't trying to fix anything anymore. I was just building something new. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in the garage, the studio, helping Eli mount some acoustic panels when the doorbell rang. We weren't expecting anyone, and nobody who knows me well ever uses the front door. That thing is for salesmen and regrets. So when I opened it, and there she was, Monica, in a long coat, sunglasses, holding a manila envelope like it contained the answers to everything, well, let's just say I wasn't surprised. Just tired. "Adam," she said. "Monica," I replied. She looked around like she couldn't believe I'd gone and built a life without her. Like she expected the walls to miss her or the porch to sag in sorrow. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice too formal for the woman who used to leave post-it notes on my forehead. "I've got 10 minutes in a paint-stained hoodie," I said. "Come in." She didn't sit. She stood in the living room, scanning everything like she was measuring how happy I was without her. She handed me the envelope. "These are the final papers. The division. The details. The numbers. Everything." I nodded. "Thanks." She hesitated. "You did all this, quickly. You'd be amazed what you can build when no one's doubting you in your own house." She winced. "Just slightly. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Adam." "But you did." "I know." That was the thing, she did know. She just didn't think I'd do anything about it. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't ask how she was. I just walked to the door and opened it. "Take care of yourself," I said. She looked at me, really looked, and for the first time in a long while, there was no control in her expression. No power. Just someone staring at the version of me she never saw coming. She left without a word. The envelope sat untouched on the kitchen counter for 2 days. When I finally opened it, it wasn't legal jargon that stood out. It was a photo. Us. From 10 years ago. At the lake. The day I told her I'd love her even when we changed. I guess I just didn't realize she'd change without me. Eli came into the kitchen one morning with the kind of grin that said, "I'm trying to act cool, but I just leveled up." I got in, he said. 2. Uick. Music program. Full ride. I froze, spat toothpaste into the sink, and blinked. Full ride? As in free. He laughed. As in, your bank account just sighed in relief. We hugged, awkwardly, like two guys trying not to make it a big deal. But it was. It was. Later that week, Barb, my landlady, the banana bread dealer, set me up on a coffee date. Her niece, Claire, divorced, witty, owned a rescue dog named Justice who hated vacuum cleaners and wore a bandana that said, "Unleash kindness." We met at a little cafe and talked about everything except failed marriages. She made me laugh. Not the polite chuckle you give someone just to fill time, but the kind where your eyes crinkle and your stomach flexes like it's doing sit-ups. At the end, she said, "You're not what I expected." I smiled. "Good. Neither am I." Justice barked in approval. The letter came in a plain envelope. No return address. The handwriting looked careful, like someone afraid of being misunderstood. It was from Monica. "Adam, I saw your post about Eli's scholarship. Congratulations. I mean that. I didn't know how much I had erased until I saw what you built without me. You were never boring. You were constant. And I confused the two. I hope you keep laughing. You look lighter these days. Monica." I read it once. Then again. Then I wrote a letter back. A short one. "Monica. Thank you. We were never meant to stay the same. But we both know I'm not the one who changed without notice. Be well." I didn't sign it with love. I signed it with peace. And that was enough. Eli insisted we have one last dinner before he moved into the dorms. We grilled steaks, played his favorite indie playlist, and lit a small fire in the backyard pit. It was warm, comfortable, final in the best way. He handed me a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" I asked. "My old list. From the motel. Things I was afraid to ask for." I unfolded it. Scrawled in uneven handwriting were phrases like, "A place to stay. Someone who listens. A dad who doesn't vanish." I looked at him. "You gave me all of it," he said. And just like that, I felt it. That solid, quiet sense that I hadn't just survived this story. I'd earned it. We tossed the list into the fire, watched it curl and vanish into smoke. Then I made a new one. Just 3 words. Laughter. Freedom. Next, that night, I sat on the porch, justice asleep at my feet, and realized something simple. This wasn't revenge. It was reinvention. And Monica? She'll spend a lifetime wondering when exactly I stopped chasing her. She won't realize it was the moment I started chasing myself.